Flash, thank you so much for
All
doing
right.
this interview with us. We've heard a lot about you on the news and through your squatter hunter journey. And I'm very curious, and I know our members are as well, just to hear a little bit about your background first and how you got into this world of hunting squatters.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it started in 2000. Unfortunately, after my dad passed away, a lot of people share stories of similar. They have a relative pass, and then they have a vacant house for a while for either during probate or they're trying to sell it. In my situation, I moved my mom in with me to, uh, you know, basically be able to sell her house so she could move forward. And I got a report that there was a break-in and that people had broken in the back door of the house. I did what everyone does. I called the sheriff. I said, "Hey, there's a break-in. My mom's house is vacant. You know, go basically arrest anybody on the premises." I got a call from the deputy when he arrived, and he said, "Yeah, I see the back door's broken in." He said, "But you told me that the house was vacant." And I said, "Yeah, it is." And he said, "No, it's not. There's a house full of furniture." He said, "So it appears as though you have squatters and there's nothing I can do. It's a civil matter." So, those are words that, now, I mean, they're just horrifying words for homeowners. And I was in a situation where I wasn't the homeowner. It was my mom's house, and she was in a vulnerable state, mourning the loss of her husband and my father. And so I couldn't even share with her that we had squatters. So I had to devise a plan. And, I basically broke down the squatter laws and squatter rights and broke them down, pieced them apart, figured out loopholes, and figured out if they could take a house. I could take a house. And I couldn't tell my mom. So I told her that I was there, going to basically do repairs on the home, and I needed a lease from her because I didn't want to, have somebody question me and while I was there. And I had read that back then that squatters sometimes have fake leases. So I knew that I was going to be driving for 10 to 12 hours, and the last thing I wanted to do was be in a position where they pull out a lease and I'm sent home. So I, got a lease in my name, making me a legal tenant just in case they had a lease. Once I got there, I noticed three cars in the driveway. I was there really, really early in the morning, like 4:30 in the morning, and just sat down the street watching. And around 8:30 in the morning, there was some movement, and I witnessed five men and two women walk out from the rear exit of the house and get in the cars. Three cars pulled out of the driveway, and I just waited. I waited about 15 minutes because I always forget things and have to go home. So I always kind of do that in case people turn around and, oh, I forgot my hat or whatever, my sunglasses. So they pull out of the driveway. I go over there. I try my key and it works. And kind of thought it would since they exited the rear of the house. But so I go in the house. I secure the back door. I start putting up cameras. I set up a ring alarm system, and as I'm putting the last camera up in the driveway, a car pulls in behind me, and it's two women. I just informed them that I was their squatter now, and the house belonged to me, and it was secured with cameras and an alarm. If they tried to break in, they would be prosecuted. And I just told them they have a choice. They can leave with their furniture or without their furniture. And I had them out in less than a day. And yeah, it worked well. Everything that I had planned worked, and they didn't really have any options because I had switched the process on them becoming their squatter. They would have had to then take me to civil court to get back in, and they couldn't do that because they couldn't prove legal tenancy.
So you switched the tables on them, putting them in that position. Very interesting. I know that you've now helped several other landlords and property owners with this issue. So, what are some of those initial steps? Does it always look the same way as it did with the situation in your mother's case, or do you take different approaches?
Well, every situation is different, and I've found that squatters find different ways to get in. So I have to assess every single situation separately to determine what similarities there are. So I start every process with a Zoom consultation where I not only learn all about the situation, but I learn all about the squatters. So anything that the homeowner can share with me, if they have their names, if they have photos, if they have you know cars and license plates, and so basically anything that they have they share with me. I assess if there's a danger, if there's a criminal element, if they have a felony record, anything like that. And then we if we determine, I coach these homeowners, I break it down, simplify it, and in many cases I'm just helping them get through it. And if I can give them the tools to do it on their own, I do that. And but in some cases, they will hire my team, and we will start with gathering all of our information, surveillance, finding opportunities to get them out of the house to where we can either switch places with them or have a squatter intervention where basically I catch them coming back to the house and confront them about squatting. I talk to them about what I can do, exposing them if they have something to lose. In many cases, just my exposure, just my media, just my followers on YouTube, knowing that I have the potential to expose them to the world and to any future landlord that they might be trying to rent from. If I can um, portray them as a squatter and put it out there to the public, in many cases, the squatters will leave just with that.
That is interesting. The shame of the internet that comes after the squatters is enough of a threat. Well, obviously, you can't take every squatter issue in the country, although we wish you could. Maybe someday your team will be big enough to cover a lot of them. But for the individual landlord who's maybe trying to DIY this, what's your suggestion on what they can do as just at least a first step to get the ball moving with this and maybe expedite the squatters leaving?
Well, first of all, yeah, I mean, landlords have to be very careful because, in many states, they're illegally, they're not allowed to do this. They'll be arrested. We are nationwide, and I am building, daily. I'm building my team, and I travel basically coast to coast to do this. But I would say the best advice I can give them would be prevention. Making sure that they have cameras up, make sure they have alarm systems set. They can go down and file a report for no trespassing signs when a house is vacant. But as far as when you have a squatter or an intruder, call law enforcement, and then, never try to do it on your own. Don't approach them at all. The less, when I go in, if you haven't had any interaction with them, it increases my success rate by tremendously if I'm the
Mm.
first one to approach them. So, call law enforcement, have them checked out. But as soon as they say, it's a civil matter, there's nothing we could do, I would say go to squatterhunters.com, contact us. Let's at least start with a consultation and break it down so I can help you specifically based on your situation. It's really hard to say this is what you should do, because every situation is different. But I can say that if you start the legal process, it's going to just increase their position. It's going to empower your squatter. It's going to give them the power that you would like to keep yourself.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, it is a tough situation and obviously varies by state as well. We've seen now that there are a few states that are coming up with these proposed laws that will address squatters specifically. And I know you've been, advocating for that for some time. So, how do you think these laws will help? I know was it Florida, Georgia, I believe Alabama or Arkansas that's doing that. So just wanted to get your take on those laws and what you think should be done there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been calling for this for over a year, and I'm very happy to be a part of it, and being there in Florida and a part of that and speaking at that conference was an honor. But I think that as long as we have a clear distinction between squatters and tenants, to where tenants still feel that they have right to process, and squatters have a threat and know that they will be prosecuted and it is a felony, and that's going to deter a lot of squatters, the everyday squatter that is just doing it because they believe that there's a system that allows them to and they just feel entitled. Those people are going to, a lot of them are going to be detoured just that it's a crime now. So I think that, all states need to just, get on board with this. This isn't a political thing. This is a people thing. And I can guarantee you squatters don't ask you and they don't care what your political views are when they're looking at your house to take it over. So, we all need to come together, fight for this, fight for change. And, I'm just trying to be an ambassador for change and speak out for, for landlord rights and law change.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned briefly that, landlords, if they, do something wrong or they're in a certain tenant friendly state, that they themselves could get in trouble as well. So, what are, some of those things that would maybe get a landlord in trouble? I know it varies by state, but what are some common mistakes that when it comes to removing squatters?
You know, most states have self-help laws that prohibit landlords from removing a tenant, from locking out a tenant. And you have to keep in mind that squatter rights and squatter laws, they were actually from the 1800s and had nothing to do with residential maintained properties. So squatters are actually taking over tenant rights. And it doesn't matter what state you're in, it's the same. So landlords need to treat a squatter like a tenant. And if it's illegal to do it to a tenant, it's illegal to do it to a squatter. That basically is the number one thing that's going to keep you out of jail is you need to think of your squatter as a tenant. As hard as that is, that's how they need to be treated.
Yeah, that is a tough pill to swallow, but certainly prevention is key in this case. And talking to an expert like yourself, if you do run into the issue, of course, is going to be the best way to go. So we'll definitely be connecting our members to you so they can get to you before the issue gets worse. I'm so glad that you're doing this, Flash. I know in a previous conversation you told me, I just want to help people. And I think that's really what it comes down to is you're really doing a lot of great work to help people who have worked very hard to be homeowners and to be landlords. And, there's something about that that we really need to address. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you. And I do have, I have prevention videos, squatter preventions videos on Outside the Box with Flash on YouTube. And I this all started because I was just trying to be a good son, and now I'm just trying to be a good American.